Now, my next guest is a married mother. She comes from Leeds and she's from a white, middle-class British family. Very ordinary. You're probably not somebody you'd expect to have spent time at a terrorist training camp, but that's exactly what happened to Anne Singleton after being brainwashed by an extremist group. And she joins me now. It's really good to see you. And I can't believe how your life has changed so much, you know, from the life where you grew up and the road that you were supposed to travel, and then to what you are now.
Right.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? How did you get involved with this group in the first place?
Well, it was in the late 70s, and I went away to college, to Manchester University, to study English. I had an Iranian boyfriend.
Right.
And it was just after the revolution. There was a lot of activity going on. In fact, 1979 was quite a political year. Margaret Thatcher had just been elected. And so when I went into the student union, there were groups of students from every corner of the world almost, talking politics. But the only group which really seemed to be active, actually doing things like holding demonstrations and meetings, were the Mujahideen.
Right.
And I guess because I had already an introduction through my boyfriend.
So you were kind of drawn to that? You were drawn to that.
Yes.
And that's what, you know, demonstrations were happening, but it got more sinister. In a way, it was almost like a cult, wasn't it? Because they really did brainwash you.
It was a cult, something I didn't find out until I left.
Well, you never know when you... exactly.
Absolutely.
You don't know when it's actually happening, and it's gradually, slowly. I mean, they're very clever, you know, the way that they can manipulate people.
Very manipulative, yes. And you're totally unaware that what you think are just very sincere and very self-sacrificing people are actually role modelling a kind of behaviour to you, which you get drawn into, and it's that kind of behaviour which you start to mirror and start to take on for yourself.
And what was the name of the group? What were they called? Because there's many splinter groups, aren't there? What was this one?
It's called the Mujahideen Khalq.
Right.
It's the People's Mujahideen of Iran.
Right.
They're quite well known.
And you went out there as well. You actually went, you know, because it went from operating here and, you know, being shown videos and all of that stuff. But you actually went out. You went out there.
They got me to the point where I accepted quite readily, quite enthusiastically, to go to their military training camp in Iraq. Right.
And what were you taught there? What sort of things did they teach you?
Well, they taught me, there were about 50 of us went together. The men and women were separated. We went to a place which was quite obviously an Iraqi military barracks. And they sent us on basic military training. So we did the usual marching and assault course training. We learned to drive trucks, and we also were issued a Kalashnikov each. And
did they tell you what all this was aimed at? What all this was, you know, what was this training and all of this? And you were showing videos of people blowing themselves up. What was given for the reason for that? Was there an end game, do you think?
Well, it's unbelievable to me now, but I knew full well that the end game was to take part in a military attack on Iran at some point in time. And I had been so indoctrinated and so had so submitted to their indoctrination that I was prepared to go and do that.
Extraordinary. How did you get out? Because I mean, you know, many don't. Many don't.
It was extremely difficult. It really is the hardest thing I've done in my life. I walked out of their safe house in London in 1993 because I just couldn't keep up with the extraordinary demands they were making on me, one of which was to get divorced or not actually get married. They had compulsory divorce.
And no children, presumably.
And no children, and that's something that really I couldn't accept. But I walked out in 93, and it took me another 3 years to break all the mental, emotional ties which they had, and they kept pulling and tugging and trying to get me back. But even once I'd broken the ties and had no more contact with them, it still took maybe 3-4 years and a bit of research into cult behaviour and mind control techniques.
To see how you were manipulated,
to see and to actually accept that, yes, I had been totally under their control.
Extraordinary, absolutely. The thing is, though, you're a bright woman. You know, you were at university, you were clever. Okay, maybe you're a bit naive, you know, but if they can get their hooks into somebody like you, then you get very, very concerned about what they can do with some people who maybe aren't all that bright, who maybe are more open to be manipulated. It's very, very scary, isn't it?
It is. I mean, you know, I hope that my experience will serve as a warning to everybody.
Very much so.
At some point in your life, you may be vulnerable. And, you know, in sales, there are consumer laws to protect people from unscrupulous salesmen, or salespeople rather. But the recruiters who recruit you into a destructive cult like the Mujahideen, there is no protection.
No, that's true. And then oftentimes people are a wee bit scared to do anything about it. You know, they're frightened of being accused maybe of being racist or whatever. You know, so maybe they tippy-toe around and they don't actually maybe try and do as much as they can. Do you feel that you're in any danger from speaking out? Because you've got a wee boy and you're married and, you know, you're building your life again. But were you worried about sort of coming out and telling people about your experiences?
I don't feel in personal danger,
right.
no, not from this organisation, but I think that they have tried very hard to
get you back?
To get me back, to stop me from speaking out.
For sure, I can understand that, of course.
And I think that's what stops a lot of ex-cult members from actually speaking out. There is this fear and the intimidation.
No, very much so.
Great.
And you've built your life again, you really have. You must feel, though, some sadness for those who weren't able to do that. You know, the people that are still there.
I run a website now, and my aim in running that website is really to expose this organisation for what it really is. They put on a very kind of Western looking face, very democratic, protecting human rights. I know that the people in that organisation do not have a single human right.
I understand.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights has about 30 articles in it. Not one single one of those would apply to a cult member in the Mujahideen. I would love to rescue those people. I would love to be able to get people out and prevent people from being recruited into modern...
Indeed, absolutely, absolutely, because it's even worse now, sadly, than it was when you joined. And thank you very much indeed. I'd like to talk to you again. It's very, very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll put all those details. I keep going on about our website, but we will do that because I think it's very important.